It's been over a decade since the release of Remedy's Alan Wake, a third-person psychological horror game that blends a tight narrative with mysterious settings and characters, with very inventive gameplay mechanics that is beloved, to say the least, and worthy in my opinion of being called a cult classic. Hi everyone, I'm Gobotch, and today I'm going to share my thoughts on Alan Wake and why after a decade, it remains my favorite horror game and one of my favorite video games of all time. Remedy is well known for crafting complex narratives with inventive gameplay mechanics, and Alan Wake, of course, is a prime example of this in action. Alan Wake uses a light and dark system, and it's ever present throughout the narrative of this game's story, but the big difference maker is how well this war of light and dark works within the moment-to-moment gameplay. From the opening moments, this tug of war between the light and the dark is front and center, and as Alan traverses Bright Falls, the fictional town you explore in this game, which is very far from what the name actually suggests, he is guided from checkpoint to checkpoint by various sources of light. From a light post to an illuminated shack, these guiding lights offer momentary calm in the midst of the terrors that haunt Wake in the dark. The time spent in these illuminated safe havens feels earned, and it serves as a much-needed break in the ever-building tension and the never-ending nightmare that Alan finds himself in. From there, the moment-to-moment combat is immensely satisfying, which shouldn't come to surprise anyone familiar with Remedy's prior work, of course, with the Max Payne franchise. So within Alan Wake, you're blasting away members of the Taken, the game's shadowy-like antagonist, with a limited assortment of weapons aided by a trusty flashlight or lantern. Alan Wake does a brilliant job of tight-roping suspenseful horror with action horror, and Alan shines and he blasts and dodges shadowy Dexter Morgan-like lumberjacks, chasing you relentlessly with an axe like something you read out of a Stephen King novel. The game never feels too action-heavy, and at the same time it never feels devoid of action beats. The game balances this line by offering a scarce amount of ammo and supplies throughout its episodic campaign structure, something the best Resident Evil titles even managed to do with great effect as well, giving players just enough ammo and just enough supplies to beat the odds. Now, the core loop of combat is satisfying as you burn away basically a hazy darkness shrouding the Taken with your various light sources. Then you use your guns from a pistol, shotgun, or rifle, or even a flare gun to blast the Taken into oblivion. Now, my favorite moment to actually showcases Alan Wake's gameplay, light and dark mechanics, and environmental storytelling to the highest is actually the siege at Valhalla, the Anderson brothers' farm. Now, this epic set piece is such an effective moment because it blends all of these elements together in a way that feels like a penultimate episode to one of your great television dramas. As Alan defends a soundstage that belongs to the Anderson brothers, who are part of a band called the Old Gods of Asgard, it's bombarded by wave after wave of the relentless Taken, and Alan uses his limited arsenal, aided by Barry, his trusty agent, and some stage pyrotechnics that light up the Bright Falls night skies as the Old Gods music blares in the background. It's an intense action set piece that makes you feel like a true hero and is beyond epic, and it's a moment that once first experienced I will never forget again. Now let's transition to the narrative of Alan Wake and why to this day it is still something I find myself thinking about or discussing with friends, or even searching on the internet for videos that discuss the spoilery elements of Alan Wake and where this game could go in the future. Upon arriving in Bright Falls, Alan Wake does a remarkable job of introducing you to the core cast of the game's story, as well as the mysterious landmark that is Cauldron Lake. Now let's take a moment to recognize and applaud the writers and the voice actors, as they are expertly crafted, written, and acted throughout the game's roughly 11-hour campaign, depending on how long you progress through each of the game's episodes. Now, each character is perfectly realized within the mysterious lakeside town, and each with their own quirks and backgrounds, some of which come into the forefront in Wake's journey. The narrative of the game is told in a way that reads like a great Stephen King novel. You meet your cast of characters, then a major event takes place, Then down the rabbit hole you go as your game's protagonist, following breadcrumb pieces by piece by piece, within shocking revelations take place and profound character moments along the way, leading you to a shocking ending that leaves you, the player, wanting more. Alan Wake's narrative is fed to you, the player, both directly and indirectly. As Alan traverses the town, he comes across manuscript pages that foreshadow the events to come in the game ahead. Alongside this, Alan, of course, gives his internal thoughts that serves more as a narration of what's going on in the moment-to-moment developments that serve as a way to focus the perspective on a titular character story. And when Alan is shocked by a revelation, we are as well. When he is scared by a revelation, we are as well. Receiving information and story beats firsthand from Alan leaves room for the mystery that unfolds around Alan, haunting Wake and Bright Falls. This internal narration perfectly serves the story, and it keeps the player on edge of their seats and gripping the controller tight. Together, this narrative structure, the writing, characters, and gameplay meld together to form a masterpiece of a game, one deserving of much more love and adoration than it originally received way back in 2010. So let's rewind. Let's go back to May 2010. Alan Wake, a brand new, fresh IP, was released by Remedy, who just came off of the highly successful Max Payne series. Now, little was known about Remedy's new IP prior to its debut, and to make matters worse and a hill higher to climb, Alan Wake released the same week as a little old game called Red Dead Redemption. Needless to say, the game struggled initially in sales, though it did fairly well within reviews. Currently today, it's sitting at an 83 on Metacritic, which for my money is far lower than where it should be. However, over the next few months following its release, Alan Wake gained some steam through positive word of mouth, and by the year ended, it was at a 1.4 million copies sold. And over the years, Alan Wake has continued to grow in popularity and has developed a pretty loyal cult following. This following, of course, clamoring for a true sequel for Wake's story after the very vague conclusion, and most recently, a major tease within one of Control's DLCs. So here we are. It's been over a decade since Alan Wake has released, and here it stands, firm, a horror classic, a masterpiece. And as Stephen King once said, good books never give up all of their secrets at once, and that, I think, applies here with Alan Wake. This story is not finished from being told. There are still some pages left to be written in his journey, and I, for one, cannot wait to see what comes next.